It's Lisa from Been There, Got Out, and now we are live for real with Tracy Coenen. She is the founder of the Divorce Money Guide, and now there's a Divorce Money Guide too. So we just did a few minutes ago making sure that she could get on properly, and I know she knows how to do it, and there she is. So, oops, let me just get her on here. All right, and one thing that I really like about Tracy, what Tracy does is that, hi, I was just saying one thing I really like about what you do is you empower people, and our people in this community, we want to know how to do things ourselves and how to help ourselves, especially when everything is so crazy and we're bleeding money. So why don't you, again, introduce yourself and tell us what you did in the past and what led you here.
I'm Tracy Coenen. I am a forensic accountant, and so I love to tell people that I find money. I do fraud investigations, and some of that's in the corporate world, and some of it is on the divorce side. So going through the divorce process with people and helping them figure out if their spouse is hiding money, or just sometimes really understanding exactly what they've been spending their money on during the marriage so that they know what to expect in terms of dividing assets and getting or paying alimony or child support, and then understanding what their financial picture might look like going forward. But there are so many people who cannot afford the services of a forensic accountant, but they have concerns and they have needs surrounding the money in their divorce. So I created the Divorce Money Guide as a do-it-yourself product on the forensic accounting side.
All right, so that's awesome. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But first of all, I was thinking that financial abuse is present in 99% of the toxic relationships, especially that we deal with. But the problem is, and including in my own situation, I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know what financial abuse meant. I didn't know that it was happening to me. So if, like, most of us would never suspect the person we love or our partner to be committing fraud, especially while we're still married. So how do people know, like, what are some red flags of how to know if there's fraud going on with the person that we think is supposed to be our partner?
Well, that's a fantastic question. It is all about those red flags and identifying and understanding signs that might suggest that they are abusing you financially, controlling you financially in a way that is inappropriate. And you're right, we get married, we trust someone. That's part of marriage. And so, you know, it's not unusual for one spouse to be completely in control of the money because we divide duties, divide and conquer in the marriage, right? But if your spouse is overly controlling about the money, controlling about what you spend, or questioning you, or not letting you spend, that's certainly a sign. But when it comes to, like, red flags of, are they potentially hiding money or having secret spending, I say look for things like changes in their behavior. You know, they are suddenly not giving you information. You don't know what they're spending money on, or changes in behavior like they're hiding their phone a lot, or they are now not coming home when they used to come home, and things like that. I also look for instances where maybe, you used to see the bank statements and now you're not allowed to see them, or you used to be able to access online banking and now you can't. I could go through a laundry list of red flags for you.
Go through a few more. These are great. I mean, these are ones I'm thinking of with when we've interviewed private investigators in terms of how do you know if someone's cheating? So not just cheating with other people, but cheating with money.
Right. Disappearing documents, secretive behavior, being unwilling to share information about the money. You find a bank account that you never knew about before, especially if it's only in your spouse's name.
Okay.
Your spouse is spending money outside of agreements that you had. So, for example, people who are married typically have agreements that we won't spend more than X dollars without talking about it first. And all of a sudden your spouse is going beyond that. Or you're seeing that there are purchases for things that you've never seen in the house. A great example is, there's a $2,000 purchase on the credit card at Best Buy, and you never saw any sort of electronics or anything like that. Those are all part of that laundry list of red flags.
You're making me think of my past, which happens so much during interviews like this, with the double standard. So I remember in my situation, my ex would be like, we need to make a budget. We're spending too much money. And then we'd make a budget but then he would go buy himself whatever he felt like whenever he felt like it. And of course, it was electronics and that kind of thing. And I'd be like, but what about what we agreed to? And it only applied to me.
Right. Well, then you and I could go down the rabbit hole of the electronics, because what I'm looking for and thinking of is it's the second phone that you don't know about, or maybe it's a phone for an affair partner or something like this. I can get all conspiracy theory about it. But what I found was that people who are thinking about divorce or in the process of divorce, number one, they don't know what these red flags are. But number two, if they do see some of them, they don't know how serious is this? Am I being paranoid? Because their spouse would tell them, if you tried to confront it, they would say, oh, you're making things up. You're paranoid. You're just looking for things to pick at. So I created a red flag assessment that people could take, 15 questions to help them evaluate from a really objective perspective. Is this something to worry about or not?
Yeah. Sorry. And just from before, I was thinking of another situation that I wonder if this would go on your list. My ex had a number of different credit cards that I didn't know about with like very small amounts of balance. Like 4 of them I found at once, and I had no idea, like, why are these still outstanding balances? I don't know if you know the answers, but why would somebody have lots of little credit cards with little balances on it?
I don't know about the little balance thing. I know why they'd have a lot of credit cards, right, to facilitate a lot of spending, but I don't know exactly why small balances would be important, other than maybe he was trying to make sure that there wouldn't be something happening on his credit report that you might notice.
Oh, interesting. That's really interesting. All right. Okay. So let's talk about too, you touched on it a little, especially during our first conversation. You said that a lot of times forensic accountants or forensics are 95% not affordable, but also not warranted. What does that mean?
For the average divorce, you are not going to need a forensic accountant probably, because we're just so expensive, and the cost of having me do services will probably be more than you will get out of your divorce because of whatever I find. A forensic accountant, you can plan on $10,000 to $15,000 just to get started. And then depending on how complicated your situation, it goes up from there. What we do is very labor intensive. We deal with a lot of data, a lot of bank statements, tax returns, things like that. And so it takes a lot of time, and that's what makes it so expensive. If there isn't a lot of money at stake, I try to talk to people and say, how much do you think could possibly be hidden by your spouse? And of course, that feels like a catch-22. It's like, well, if I knew how much was hidden, I wouldn't need a forensic accountant, right? But we try to talk about, how much you've been making, what kind of assets you have, to help get an understanding of what could really be missing that you wouldn't know about. And that will guide whether or not it makes sense to hire someone like me. So I would say, if we think there's $20,000 missing, just doesn't pay to hire me, because it's going to be hard to get any money back. Your half of $20,000 that's missing is only $10,000. You're well beyond what makes sense to pay for with me. So that's why for most people, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because that's the thing that people throw out right away is like, I should get a forensic, right? I should probably get a forensic. And we talk about doing a cost-benefit analysis, which is essentially what you've just described.
Right. But the thing is that these people who have questions about the money still deserve to have answers. And that was the place that I was coming from. So if hiring a forensic accountant is not an option for you, what can you do? And there was nothing out there. I was having people call me. We'd have these conversations. The conclusion would be reached that it really is too expensive. It doesn't make sense to hire me. And so they were saying, well, what are my alternatives? And I was saying, well, I can send you a couple articles on the internet to read, but that just felt so empty. It felt like it really wasn't helping them at all, because they'd read those articles and they'd still say, okay, I want to know what happened to my money. Mm-hmm. And then that just gave rise to the whole idea for the Divorce Money Guide. If I could give people a roadmap to look at the numbers themselves, something easy, some steps they could follow, get these documents, organize them like this, look at them and look for these specific things and start making lists of things that don't look right, and look for things like this, that would be something that could help them, and they could help themselves and get their questions answered. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people in the process of divorce, if your spouse has hidden money, it is very difficult to get it. Or if they've spent it on an affair partner, it's very difficult to get it back. but having the answers about what happened and, knowing and feeling peace in yourself. Okay, I thought there was money that was hidden, and now you know either yes or no. That can be very helpful.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I have a few thoughts. I'm like taking notes as you're talking. In terms of, actually, let me go back to the other thing that I was thinking first when you were talking about how it's really difficult to find certain money. Offshore accounts, are forensic accountants able to ever find that stuff? Because I was told no years ago.
Here's the thing. For the vast majority of people in divorce, offshore accounts aren't going to be a thing, right? If your spouse and you have never had any dealings offshore, the thought that they have an account there is really, it's pretty far-fetched. For people who have done business overseas or maybe have family overseas, right? If they have ties overseas, that's when I'm thinking that it's more possible. The way that I would find an offshore account is by looking through the bank statements and finding some evidence of money being transferred to an overseas bank. But I think the question you're asking, is there like some massive database that we can go to say, hello, does this person have an account somewhere else? There isn't such a thing. Now, there are private investigators who can do work to try to uncover evidence of accounts overseas, but it is a very, very murky area because a lot of people who say, I can find bank accounts domestically or overseas, they're doing illegal things to find those accounts. So you got to be really careful.
Oh, interesting. So if they're doing illegal things, that means if they do find the money, you might not be able to get it because the way it was obtained was illegally. So
yeah, and you're going to look bad in court in front of the judge, right? If it comes out that you employed someone who used illegal activities to try to uncover something, it's an area that I don't like to get into. And so what I say is, if you're going to hire a private investigator who does different work than I do to try to uncover these accounts, you want to make sure you're working with one who is super ethical, who is not going to break the law.
Right, because then what's the point?
Right. And how do you know that they're ethical? It is by getting referrals to people. So for example, I have a private investigator that I've worked a bunch of divorce cases with who is in New York, and he will not employ any illegal techniques whatsoever. He will do everything possible within the law, but he won't do anything illegal. So it's all about asking your attorney, your accountant, if they know anyone, and, does it all pass the smell test?
Yeah. All right, good. I mean, that makes so much sense because you're already going to be spending all this money to try to get money back. And then if you look bad in court, then it's going to be worse for you and you get penalized possibly.
Right.
All right. The other thing I was thinking of is cryptocurrency. This is a big issue that's starting to come up. What about forensics and crypto?
That's another interesting area. Part of the reason that cryptocurrency exists is for privacy, secrecy reasons, right? And so it is a very difficult area. How I, as a forensic accountant, get involved with crypto is if we have some information that an account exists. We are looking for information that an account exists. So that might be a transfer from your bank account to a known cryptocurrency exchange, like doing something like Coinbase, right? A very well-known way to buy and sell cryptocurrency of various sorts. So if I saw a transfer from your bank account to Coinbase, I would say, okay, we know that we need to go to Coinbase and subpoena their records and get that stuff. However, people are doing this, getting involved in cryptocurrency in other ways where there isn't that paper trail that I can see. And that makes it really, really difficult because in order to investigate cryptocurrency, you need to have information on the wallet or the account that it's done through. And so it is difficult for sure.
Yeah, that's I thought. Okay, so then the other thing that I took notes on with the last thing you said in terms of getting the money back. So say, because a lot of cheating with other people it's certainly involved with our clients in this community in general. And we often find that they know that their ex spent loads of money on an affair partner. Now, when I was getting divorced, my divorce attorney said, you could maybe, if you can get all that information together, you can argue that that was marital assets and that you should get a credit for that. So we have clients whose exes have gone on very expensive trips and also transferred money to the affair partner. How do you deal with something like that? And do you think it's true what my divorce attorney said, that maybe you can argue to get some kind of credit because it's marital assets? Sorry for the compound question.
Absolutely. No, it's a great question. So let's just use the number $50,000. Let's just say your spouse wasted $50,000 on his affair, on all those trips and those transfers. And we have the documents because we've gotten all the bank statements, the credit card statements, and you've done it yourself. You've gone through and logged every transaction that is for the affair partner. And it came up to $50,000. Half of that was yours. Marital property, absolutely. So now you're owed $25,000. Here's what I advocate. If you have equity in your house that you're dividing, where that equity typically might be divided 50-50, it's pretty typical, you can potentially get $25,000 more equity in that house to make up for your piece of that affair money that was spent. Now, unfortunately, there are some divorces where there really aren't assets to be divided, and it's really hard then to get that money back. There's nowhere to get it back from. But I say, think about equity in the house. If there's a retirement account that you're splitting, you might be able to get more of that. Or if you have other bank or investment accounts, you might be able to get a larger piece of that to make up for it. So absolutely, your divorce attorney was right.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. And then also I was thinking like cars too, because a lot of times we have clients who they have vehicles or the person, I'm thinking of one in particular, the person's ex likes to invest in sports cars and bought a couple of sports cars. And now they're trying to figure out assets. And it was like, okay, how does it work if they bought a new one, but then it's depreciated in value, but they weren't supposed to buy it in the first place because it was after automatic orders were issued? I don't even know how that works, but I imagine it's similar with getting a credit. Like if you can prove the receipts, if you have the receipts.
Right. So it all boils down to getting the proof, getting those bank documents. And so I'm very document based in everything I do. And so I'm showing people, here's how you get that proof and organize it to be able to show to the judge. It's X number of dollars that he spent of our money that was inappropriate.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so tell me more about the financial discovery process. Just for the people here who haven't already dealt with, what does that mean and what should people look for or ask for, even though a lot of times they won't get it?
Well, in your divorce, discovery is exactly what it sounds like. You are discovering what evidence and documents the other side has. They're discovering what you have. So for financial discovery, we're talking about turning over bank statements and income tax returns and credit card statements and information about your pay at your job and things like this. So anything related to the money, you can kind of plan on having to disclose that in the process of the divorce. And then there is a whole, we talk in the Divorce Money Guide about some of these legal terms that are used, like interrogatories, where the other side is able to ask you questions, and they have a fancy name called interrogatories. And they're going to ask you questions about the money. Where do you have accounts? What have you been spending money on? How much do you get paid at your job? Very routine. So, so you can plan on having to answer questions, having to provide documents, and then probably sitting for a deposition, which is just a chance for your soon-to-be ex and their attorney to ask questions of you under oath about the finances, about your marriage, about whatever is an issue in the divorce.
Okay, so another thing is discovery process. That's like one of the most common ways that people in this community's exes abuse the process. They don't comply with discovery. And so one thing we always like to find more information about is there a way to save money during the discovery process instead of the constant begging and begging and begging for documents, which you're spending your tons of money on a lawyer asking for it and still getting nowhere? Do you have any tips or tricks on how to save money in discovery?
My best tip on that is it's the bank statements and the tax returns that I see the exes withholding and playing games with. Here's the thing. You can go, if you and your spouse filed tax returns jointly, you can go to the IRS directly and get the tax returns yourself if your name's on them. So you don't have to wait for your spouse to get them for you. And this is completely free and you can do it yourself. So that's the taxes. On the bank statement side, I know that there are attorneys who like to try to play nice in the divorce and let's request them from your ex. And then when he doesn't turn them over, let's request them again. And now let's send another letter asking for them again. And he says he's going to get them to us in 30 days. And then if that 30 days passes, let's make a phone call and send another letter. I personally, I love the concept of trying to cooperate with people, but my thing is, let's ask once. If they don't give us the bank statements, let's send a subpoena to the bank and get them directly from the bank. You know why? Because that subpoena is very routine for your attorney to do. It doesn't take them long. And all they've got to do is send it out once. And within a few weeks, your bank is going to get those documents back to you. And you don't have to ever ask your ex again. So I like shortcutting the process and doing the subpoena. And I can't tell you how many divorces I've been involved in where I've said to the attorney who has retained me, why have you been waiting for 6 months to get these bank statements? Why haven't you just sent the subpoena? Well, we're trying to be nice about it. I don't care. Get the statements with a subpoena.
Right. Why is everyone so concerned about being nice when clearly certain cases it doesn't work?
Well, and that's just it. I mean, we're getting divorced. People don't necessarily play nice in divorce. You know what? Getting a subpoena should not hurt anyone's feelings. If someone's going to be offended that I sent the subpoena to get the documents that I'm legally entitled to, too bad.
Right. Love it. Love it. Okay. Here's an interesting question that we got a few days ago. What about intellectual property? Is there a way to make claims if you're the rightful owner, or how do you even assess something like that?
Okay. So it depends, does your spouse own it? Do you own it? Is it owned through a business? There are issues. This is one of those complicated things that you probably do need to have an expert for, because if you think there is value in some intellectual property that your spouse owns, you're probably entitled to part of that value. So you're going to need to have someone help you determine what that value is. Same as if you own it, it's potential that your spouse has claim to a piece of it as well, and you need to know how much it's worth. So I think the biggest issue with intellectual property is finding out who the legal owner of it is, and then figuring out what the value of it is. So we can figure out, how do we split it, give someone a credit, buy someone out from it.
Okay, so this just made me think of another thing, because we have clients whose exes are sort of celebrity status. Mm-hmm. And of course, during the divorce, they say, oh, I don't have any money, or they have a contract to produce intellectual property or to create something like a movie or a book or something like that.
Sure.
And during the divorce, they're like, oh, I haven't done it. I haven't fulfilled and there's a struggle with trying to assess when there's already an agreement that the ex-spouse, that our client is supposed to get half. So is this the same thing? I mean, it's super complicated. So yeah, you've got this movie or this concept or this book, and it's not quite done and nobody knows anything. And of course your ex is going to say, oh, it's worth nothing. I mean, it hasn't even been created yet. Right.
And we all know that at least in some part of it was created throughout the marriage. And so there should be some value, some marital value there. It is super complicated. And so what I recommend is that you make sure that you have a divorce attorney who is well versed in these issues. This is one of the issues that I think is really hard to do it yourself. I'm a huge advocate of do it yourself, but this, especially if you are married to someone who is of celebrity status. So there might be these really lucrative movies or books, or maybe they're an athlete. They're going to have endorsements. They have endorsements, or they're going to, or they have merchandise with their name on it. It can be, if it is super valuable to you, you've got to have an attorney who has dealt with these issues before and who will get the right experts involved to help you put dollars on these things.
Yeah, and as you're talking, my brain is spinning with other ideas and other clients' experiences. Like, for example, when they're separating and the ex is like, let's settle now, but they're going to sell a business, but they haven't revealed the amount that the business is worth, but they're saying it's nothing. And they know as soon as you settle, then they're going to sell it for way more money.
And I always say, if the business is worth nothing, I will be happy to take that business then. And they say, well, no. Can't possibly do that.
Right. So that's another good tip to watch.
But you're absolutely right. So again, if there is a lucrative business involved, having an attorney who has dealt with buying and selling of businesses in the process of divorce, that's very important. Or if someone is an upper level executive and they have stock options and things like that, you want to make sure you don't have any old divorce attorney, because you need to have someone who is very experienced in how things work with this and what to expect.
Yeah, so smart and makes sense. Okay, so Tracy, tell us about what you do with the Divorce Money Guide and then direct people to how they could find you.
Sure. The Divorce Money Guide is a 10-step process for evaluating the finances in your divorce. And don't worry, to anyone who would be overwhelmed by 10 steps, you don't have to do all of them, nor do you even have to do them in order, but they walk you through how to prepare for the process of divorce and protect yourself and your information and your money. And then what the financial discovery process of the divorce is all about, evaluating those red flags. So walking you through more of them and how to identify them and whether you have something to be worried about. Then we talk about the financial documents that you're going to need in your divorce, how to get them and what to do with them, what to look for in them, and then how to put that all together so you have the proof. If you found that money is missing, how to put together that proof to be able to present it in your case. So it's meant to be super simple. And I know that that sounds sort of crazy. If we're talking about forensic accounting, which is a complicated thing, how can I make it simple for people? Trust me, everyone who has used it has said, this is so easy. I had no idea. It really works.
So this is an online program.
It sure is. It is videos, PDFs. So if you want to read the materials, you can do that. There are worksheets, there are checklists. It's all online, accessible on demand by you. You have lifetime access to it. And the guide itself is $6.97 and is found at divorcemoneyguide.com.
Okay, so Tracy, what if somebody wants more detail? Like, do you do personal consults with people or is it just this program?
If you want some personal instruction and involvement with me, we have an option to get the guide plus 8 weeks of group coaching online. So we meet once a week online, live, where I talk through a concept from the Divorce Money Guide and show you more about how to do it, give you better tips, give you additional resources and ways to find what may be hidden. And then I open up the floor for Ask Tracy Anything. So you can ask me anything financial about your divorce, about divorce in general. If you want to ask for my thoughts, you know, I had a concern about this issue with the money and my attorney said, don't worry about it. Tracy, what do you think? Should I worry about that? You want to ask me, I found this. What do I do next? So that's the way that you can have direct access to me to get some of your concerns resolved. And that option, the guide plus the group coaching, is $14.97.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tracy. And I'm so glad that we found each other because you're like right up our alley with the hidden money.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I just am so passionate about empowering people to take control in the process of the divorce so that they can get what they're entitled to and come out of this. I like to say, come out of divorce financially intact.
Yeah, so important. All right. Anyway, so thanks again, Tracy, and let's definitely stay in touch.
All right.
Okay, bye.